Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we have this quite extraordinary panel planned with the Heart Conducting Institute at the Dallas Opera. And when I was asked to be the person that would have that conversation with composers and conductors, I had a lot of ideas of who to invite, and I started with my top list. And I have to say, I'm so thrilled that I got the people that we reached out to said yes, and that we have the honor of having you all here today. So thank you for joining us. I know this will be a very exciting conversation, and I also invite people that are listening to us to join us in asking questions if you feel that you have something that you would like to comment on. I would like to start when at first we were going to do this panelist conversation, we were going to only have female conductors. And I suggested that perhaps we could include composers, female composers also to join into that conversation, since I really think that it is a very important part of being a conductor in the 21st century is to develop relationships with conductors and to be aware of the world of music that is being created now. So this is why we have the honor of having both composers and conductors, and we'll move from one area to the other and discuss that together. So perhaps I can start with Claire Gibault and ask a very basic question to start us off with this conversation, since we are doing this institute in conducting at the Dallas Opera. Claire, for you, how important is a program like one at the Dallas Opera to give women the opportunity to succeed on the podium?
We don't have first. Thank you for your invitation, and I am very pleased to share with you our point of view. It is a pleasure. Thank you. We don't have in Europe such a beautiful program as in Dallas. It takes a lot of practice and conducting to become a very good conductor. Giving opportunities to women is fundamental for their development and to help them access the best position as music directors. It was your question about the program of Dallas?
Yes. Yes. So giving that opportunity, yes, it is. Do you think that there are, do you see, however, that this program that has developed in the Dallas Opera is expanding and that other institutions are starting to give these opportunities?
I don't know other companies, and in Europe, no, there is no program like this.
Yes, Marin, would you, how do you feel about that, Marin?
Well, I'm always asked this question, do we still need, because I run the Taki Alsop Conducting Fellowship, and I'm always asked the question, oh, do we still need something like that? And I think given recent events, we need it more than ever, because we have to try to preserve the ground that has been gained. And the only reason any ground was gained really is I think it's a direct result of the Me Too social movement. And otherwise, I'm not sure we would have seen any intentional change, because we've been in an industry that could have made changes, 50 years ago, but really chose not to. So I think conducting is very, I mean, not that that sounds quite negative, but I think there are many, many, many positive things that are transpiring these days. And a lot of the institutions I'm involved with are intentionally committed to serving people who have been underserved in the past. But conducting is quite unique in that if you don't have a chance to try things out, you don't have an instrument to practice on. So opportunity becomes even more critical. And opportunities where you can afford to fail, I think, are really important, and where you can afford to make mistakes. And that's why something I think like Dallas is really essential, because it's a whole conductor kind of program. It's not just about you have one chance and that's it. if you blow it, that's, you know, your career there is over. It's nothing like that. You know, it's about trying to develop conductors as artists. And also, I think, not to go on too much, but I do think that having community is very important in our profession, because as Claire will say, tell you, and as Nicole, as you know so well, that it's a very solitary existence, and it's an existence that often separates you from your family. You're alone a lot on the road, these kinds of things. So I think having community, and like-minded women in the field to bounce things off of, to get ideas, you know, going, and thoughts, it's really critical.
So well said. You know, you bring an idea that I think we actually this morning or yesterday when we were having a seminar, we were talking about the idea of needing to have a platform to practice on, and to have that, and a platform to fail, because it's only through failure and through that you grow. What is actually failure? Failure is not failure. Failure is growth many times. So how do you balance that? I'm curious to ask, how would you, because I had one of our young person yesterday ask, how do you deal with rejection and failure? And I thought that was a really interesting question. I'd like to bring it up to both of you as conductors, and then we'll move on to composers. But what would you say to that?
Go ahead, Claire, you start.
No, I have not understood the end of the question.
Yes. The question being, how do you, as a conductor, would answer to a young conductor who is asking, how do you deal with rejection and with failure, and still have the resilience to continue? And we had a very interesting conversation about it, but I'd be curious to hear your point of view on that.
You know, I have created an international competition, La Maestra, to help the young generation, but not only the young generation. The competition is opened for all women of each age. No, I don't understood exactly what do you mean. Perhaps can you precise?
Yes,
maybe I can jump in, and
yes.
Then I think maybe if I answer or try to answer, maybe it'll become a little clearer that I think this is definitely, look, the music business, it's not just conducting, it's a business that is filled with rejection and challenges, and we grow up being criticized all the time. When you play in an orchestra, you have a conductor, you know, criticizing you. No, it's all about trying to achieve this perfection, which is unattainable and, in my opinion, overrated. But I think that at least from my perspective, rejection is you can let it get you, or you can use it. And I think that was really a key to my at least my career development and personal development too, was trying to take every rejection, of which there were, you know, exponentially more than acceptances, and try to find how I could grow from that experience, rather than say, especially early in my career, oh, I didn't get that job because I'm a woman. You know, that gives you a pass. Then you don't say, what can I do better? How can I improve myself in order to, you know, in order to battle this kind of rejection? And I think for women, women have to be exceptional at what they do, and always exceptional. You know, it's not, so maybe we'll be able to judge when there's parity, when women have the opportunity to occasionally be mediocre. But right now that doesn't exist. Right now, women must be, you know, it's got to be at the top, and that's that's the world we live in. So, but you know, rejection is how you take it. Sometimes you have to crawl into bed for a couple of days and then start again. But I don't know. It always made me kind of fueled me to keep going. I don't know, Claire, if you had that kind of experience also.
I participate in the fight against all violence and injustices against women. But don't you find that now Me Too is starting to trigger a kind of allergy towards women, or at least revolt among some men? Many European musical institutions are still run by men who are above all interested in their careers and who are not researchers, explorers looking to evolve the musical world, making excellence and solidarity compatible. I feel that now it is not so easy for women conductors. You remember before the first competition, the Maestra, we were only 4% of women conductors invited in the musical institution. After the third competition, we are now 12%. But it seems that we cannot go above. We will fight, and we will go on, we will continue, and there will be a new competition in 26, and we will not stop. But it is not so easy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but do you think I wouldn't say that you know, the Me Too movement was a reactive movement to violence against women. So we shouldn't, I feel often that women have to bear the responsibility for our own you know, for being kept out. It's not, we didn't do anything. That's just what I want to say. And I think that you're going to keep fighting. That's exactly and of course, everything's a reaction, because when you have a controlled system of people who are benefiting, and then you have challenges to that system, the people that are benefiting don't want to be challenged in that. So that's really what's going on. But I think that we as women all of us have every right, and I think it's high time we have to, you know, lock arms and just keep walking forward. That's my view anyway.
Yes, I can say also that the role of femme in the cultural economy, the power of some big artist agents, and sometimes the corruption of some institutions by these agents transmit a reactionary view of the musical world and hinder the evolution of concert forms and the diversity of careers and the place of women.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I really like the idea of not deciding that the reason for any kind of challenge is going to be because I'm a woman. Find another reason, find the reason why find a positive way of overcoming that, because we will always be women, but also the idea of pursuing on, taking strength from it, as you said, Marin. I'm curious to ask composers who have, not that I want to linger too much on that subject, but in terms of resilience and strength, and what the idea of rejection, how have you felt that your career, how do you overcome that as composers? Maybe I can start with Missy.
Sure. Yes. I mean, I think that you know, community is essential. So when you are rejected, to have that community of people around you, that community of peers. And as Marin mentioned, you know, these fields are very, very isolating, or can be very, very isolating. I think as women, we are extra isolated. So I think that it's very important. One of the things that I strive to do with my program, Luna Lab, which is a nonprofit that provides mentorship for very young female and non-binary composers, so 13 to 18. We provide a community, and they're texting each other. And if they win something or they lose something, they're texting each other and they're getting together, and they're so I think that is a big part of it. I also try to impress upon them that you don't need everyone to like you. And I think that that's if everyone likes what you're doing, you're probably not taking enough risks. And you really only need a couple people to say yes at the beginning, and like that can be life-changing. So I try to, when my students in Luna Lab are upset about losing a competition, or oh, I didn't get accepted to this one summer festival, and it's like, well, you don't, try again next year, but you don't need everyone to say yes to you. And like, who is saying yes, so to focus on that. And also just having the last thing is just that I always try to say, having been now on the other side, like now I'm someone who's on panels, who's accepting people into schools. I see the reality of that rejection, and it's not what we think when we're younger. So it's like when I got rejected from competitions, which I got rejected from many. I got rejected from half the colleges I applied to as a composer when I was a teenager. And I just thought, I'm never going to make it. It's just this black and white kind of thing. And then being on the other side, I think like it's much more nuanced. And especially when you apply to say a competition as a composer, your work is getting in front of like 10 prominent composers who might love you. And then in a month, they'll call you and be like, oh, I heard your orchestra piece. And I want to talk to you about another opportunity. So I think that the worst thing you can do is shut yourself down after a rejection, or say, I'm not going to apply to them anymore. I'm not going to apply to this opportunity, because you're probably like, you could be very, very close, and they're just waiting for you to apply again, or they're waiting for you to reach out.
Yeah, perspective is so important. And I agree, community. And this is why actually the program is very important, because you are creating community with these different conductors. What about you, Gabriela?
Oh my goodness. Well, hearing everyone talk, I'm kind of flooded with all these memories of, how it was coming up. And, I was a woman, I was also a woman of color. And so, to be at the intersection of a bunch of different dynamics was something that was daunting when I didn't have that perspective when I was younger. And then as my perspective grew, I noticed the fact that I was making things happen anyway. And so, for instance, when I was younger, because I was very active as a pianist, I could play my own music. So I was having success there, even if the cool kids weren't playing my music in the conservatory. Then they saw that I could play, then they were playing my music. So then, okay, my success bubble just sort of grew a little bit. And then I said, okay, I'm never going to go into the orchestra world. They're not looking for people like me. I came of age in the 90s, so I just didn't see a lot of women and women of color. So fine, I'm just going to write a lot of just banging great chamber music. That's what I'm going to do, okay? And then the orchestra world started to open up, and because of the chamber music. And maybe I didn't have big name performers, but I had really committed performances that were attractive. You could hear it on recordings. You could see it on the videos. So you make do with what you have, and you make it banging great. And then what can be great with the means that you have just keeps expanding. Community is very, very important. And the self-knowledge and self-confidence you get with success, even for success within your own bubble. So, the opera world, to talk since we're in that arena, did not open to me till very late. When I had the first pitch to write an opera was in 2007. And I identified my librettist right away. And we were rejected everywhere. It took 15 years before that opera was premiered. And I think, there's something about it being in a Spanish language. We're an all-Latino team. I mean, who knows? But we couldn't let that stop us. And so Nilo Cruz, my librettist, and we worked on 15 other projects over those years. We wrote voice and orchestra pieces. We wrote small art songs. We did what we could. We hired sometimes the first couple projects, we hired some of our own players and singers to do it. And so we enjoyed the ride getting there. We opened doors for ourselves and other people getting there. I think we are in a different age where there are more institutes like this. When I came of age, my success flowered on the back of one or two champions. There was one other woman, a person of color that opened the door, like what Missy was saying. Sometimes they saw my music somewhere and said, I think you could actually do something bigger. They could see the potential, and they, because of their own ethics, were invested in somebody else's success. We're at the point now where we have institutions. Sometimes they're small, started by, Luna Lab is a great example. Around the time that Luna Lab came into existence, I founded something out of my own house, my own academy. And one of my staff, one of my composers works for Luna Lab. I mean, so we tend to kind of cohere. These institutes overlap. Now all of us are here with this institute, getting to know these amazing young women. The community and meeting one another is so important, especially to foster momentum in these times where I think we are in a backlash against the progress that was made rather recently, and as Marin was saying, in a reactive way. I think sometimes progress made reactively is a little harder to stick and doesn't come from a deeper wellspring of belief. It's almost under duress and can slip. But this is sometimes how we grab progress. And so we have to make it stick by doing even more through these years.
It's so well said. When two things come to mind, one of them right now, and maybe you can speak to that, sounds that entrepreneurship, sort of taking your life into your hands and finding the opportunities and being in the moment of what you are given, and being entrepreneur with that is part of creating your career and your own path. And there are more than one path in this world in this big business of music. Can you speak to that a little bit in terms of what you believe for your career, the entrepreneurship, how that has helped you?
Sure. I would say that for myself as a composer, in school, because I was really active as a pianist, I was playing for the percussion ensemble, I was playing for all the vocal studios, I played in the orchestra a number of times. I graduated with a lot of relationships, a lot of friendships. So I was building my community body by body. And then we would get a $500 little grant and we would just put on a show. And that would attract momentum. And so the gigs got bigger and bigger. Then there was fertile ground when I did have a lucky break. People are going to have a random lucky break that comes up in 5 minutes. And it could be something that you don't even realize is something that happens. And I didn't even realize that, these were lucky breaks. But I think if you have a native entrepreneurship that you start in the community that you have, for a lot of people, that's the music conservatory, you will have a career will flower from humble beginnings like that. I can look at the pieces I have going on now that seem really fancy, and they are. They're pretty amazing. I have a life that I never thought I would have. I could do a lineage chart and go back to like oral skills 101 if I were to move back to somebody I sat next to in ear training freshman year. I really could. I could just, and I have done that sometimes for my composers when they feel like it's too far away. They don't see all the humble, tiny little baby steps of entrepreneurship and relationship and friendship and how they cohere together. There is that lack of perspective sometimes in your formative years, and people that are old, like us, we should be able to lend our vista to them because they'll go farther than us as a result to have that knowledge. We will normalize what the path looks like, and something that seems risky seems normal because we have shown how that's the bane of our existence. So sometimes I get a little bit of an allergic reaction when I hear the word entrepreneurship, and I think it's not like just getting a better headshot, or it's something much, it's something much deeper than that and much more human, and will permeate every aspect of your life, even when your life looks unreachable and fancy and, at a distance.
Yes. Do you want to add to that, Missy?
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, Gabby said it so beautifully. I totally agree. I think whenever someone's like, oh, what advice do you have for young musicians? I always kind of say the same thing, which is be yourself, duh. And then also have something in your life that is under your control that you are making. So it's not that not that you have to start, 6 nonprofits and that's your career. It's like, but have something that is under your control. So it's whether that could be forming an ensemble, could be conducting a small ensemble, having a duo with a friend. Like for composers, I'm always saying, start a group. even if it's just you and if it's just like two of you, or start playing out as a soloist, even if you're not the greatest performer in the world, doesn't matter. But to have some aspect of your life that is not dependent on other big institutions. And that is a tremendous source of power and agency, to have that. And for me, it was an ensemble. I started an ensemble, Victoire, an all-female ensemble, in 2008, because I wasn't making music with other women and I wanted to get my music out there on my terms. So started a band and we played out, in chamber music festivals, at museums, like all over the world. And it was just an amazing way to make music on my terms. So I think that can be a kind of entrepreneurship too. And then I definitely think in this, I think, backlash to Me Too, it's going to be grassroots efforts. It's always been grassroots efforts. Me Too is a grassroots effort that will support women through these tougher times. And while, just to speak to the backlash, I mean, I see these Trump appointments and it makes me nervous because, I mean, there's just an article in the Times today about how they're an explicit backlash to Me Too, but Me Too provided a language for women to advocate for themselves, and that language does not go away. And so there's a lot of this progress that we cannot go back, because it's out there now. So yeah, I just think we keep going. And as Marin said, we preserve the progress that has been made and we keep building little by little.
Well, Claire, I know that you have, just doing the Maestra is a big entrepreneurship of helping that. Can you speak to your career and how you use entrepreneurship to create the career that you have?
Well, 15 years ago, I created my own orchestra. And I am so happy. It is the most beautiful moment of my life. We have to say there are independent, non-permanent orchestra that are excellent outside of big musical institutions. Because big musical institutions believe that they are alone at the top. Not true. And these orchestras are more innovative artistically and better for the mental health of musicians. It is very important. They are also more open to stylistic experiment. We cannot do so many things with institutions. It is. I am really happy with this orchestra. I can create, invent, I can order to women composers a lot of pieces, a lot of works. It is very important for me.
Yes. What about you, Marin?
What?
What about you, Marin?
What about?
No, I'm asking Marin. Pardon.
Excusez-moi, Marin.
Well, I think that, conducting by its very nature is entrepreneurial, right? I mean, you have to really figure everything out on your own. And it's all about daydreaming and imagining, visualizing, trying to imagine what this would be like or what this gesture would elicit. I mean, so I think conductors, if I were president, I would hire a bunch of conductors, really, particularly women conductors, and maybe a few composers too, because we understand what it means to create our own destiny, because often there is no clear path, and it reminds me of so many times in my career where a manager has said to me, well, that's really not a career path. And I've had to say, well, what, just point me in the direction of all the old ladies on the podium and I'll take that path. Oh, there aren't any, right? Yeah. So, there is no defined career path. You can define your path. And the thing that's great about, in my opinion, about being a musician and the good side of music business is that there's room for everyone. and you can make a huge contribution in your own way, whatever that is, you know. And you can put together a sort of portfolio of different things to do that interest you. And I just don't think we live also as musicians in a vacuum. I think we have a responsibility to our communities in some way. And I think that being conductors, being composers, we have this chance to connect and give back. That's both a responsibility and a privilege, in my opinion. So that to me is the best of entrepreneurship. Yeah, that's it.
I think that's great. I'm going to change the lens a little bit in the second half of the conversation to the relationship between composers and conductors, and see how we can, you know, of course, we don't have that flexibility when we are not doing music of the past, but in new music we have that great special position of developing a relationship between conductors and that interpret your music, basically. So what would be, and I'll start with you, Missy, what is your ideal relationship with conductors that are interested in your music? How do you like to work with conductors?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's different, and I really like to, I'm of the opinion with all my collaborators, I like to let them do their job, you know, so it's like, if someone, I like to hear someone's interpretation, even if it might be different from my original conception of the work. So I'm working a lot with Dalia Stastevska right now, and, you know, she'll come at me with these ideas about a piece that I never even thought of, or oh, if we take this slower, we can take this part faster. And then it's like, I was like, oh yeah, that's great. You know, so I really try to be very open. And yeah. And I think that it's something that I wish that I had more of. I wish I had more connections with conductors. I wish, because I think that that's the way that these big projects can happen. And it's something that I've been working on. And like Dalia is really, you know, one of the people lately who's been sort of championing my work. And I wish that more conductors sort of like took composers under their wing and championed them as they were growing together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely developing a longer relationship than just one piece is something that is so important. What about you, Gabriela?
Yeah, you know, most of my experience with conductors comes from the orchestra world, and I stand with Missy in that I really love when conductors surprise me, you know, with a different conception. To me, that's the ultimate compliment. When you look at something like Shakespeare or Beethoven, there's so many different interpreters because the material is so rich, and I want to be able to let the piece go and say it's not mine anymore. And I have some pieces that I feel that way about. I'm the type of, I don't like going to the first rehearsal. And I just think that the players need to cuss and swear about it and complain, and the conductor needs to find it. And they don't need me to say that it's too slow. It's just not great for morale. I like to come maybe when it's more useful, to the second or third, whatever the schedule may be, to come a little later in the process. Even then, I'm not very hands-on. I like to wait till a logical moment to talk with whether it's the concert mistress or pull a percussionist off the side or the bass player. I tend to work my way in as I get to know the orchestra. I go through the fringes first and then, you know, talk with the conductor. In the opera world, I had a lot of access to the conductor, and he had no choice. And it was my first opera, Roberto Carl. I just grabbed him and I said, "You're going to mentor me. What is this opera world? It's so different from the orchestra. I want you to explain to me everything that is happening here." And he came to the workshops, and I feel very spoiled now. I want workshops on my orchestra pieces because I just love the workshopping process in the opera world. So I'm kind of on a mission to try and get orchestras to workshop orchestral works as well. So I stand with Missy. I would love a deeper relationship, the kind of, you know, fluid relationship that I have with performers if I'm workshopping something with them. And I will say that, conductors are different too. Some welcome the input of the composer, or some are more comfortable with dead people. They're more comfortable with dead composers than, living people. So we have to learn our diplomacy. We have to learn, what is everybody's comfort zone. When the wall between the conductor and the composer is porous and we can talk, I love that. And especially with new works in which everything existed in my studio and in my head, and it's like cooking a dish that you never cooked before, and the first time you're going to taste it, because all the guests are at dinner, you didn't get to taste it along the way of making it in your kitchen. So you want that kind of access. If you're in a high-profile environment and it's just got to go well, the stakes are going to rise up, and the conversation may be more careful, maybe more limited. So these are all things that you always have to be mindful of, all the parameters that are involved, the situation, the genre, the personalities involved, and your own skill sets.
And if I flip the coin and ask conductors what kind of relationship do they like to have with composers, maybe Claire, you can begin. What is your ideal relationship with a composer as you're working on a piece that involves a living composer?
When it is a world premiere, I like to have close to me the composer and to share with him the work with the orchestra. And sometimes the composer plays in the ensemble with the other musicians, and he continues to inspire and to give life to his piece, and it is very, very pleasant for me to have the composer also in the group. Yes, but it is I give the authority to the composer. It is my role to conduct the best possible his work, our work.
Yes, for sure. Marin, what do you, you've done so much of that.
Well, it's I mean, that's our role as conductors. We are the composer's messengers. I mean, we are not the creators. So I'm always in awe of all composers. I'm sometimes annoyed at them too, but still in awe. And I think it's important to start these relationships early in one's career. So I try to foster situations where young conductors, and particularly through the fellowship, young women conductors, work with women composers to try to find colleagues and friends and people that they want to champion, and vice versa, that the composer enjoys working with. I think those are relationships that are often made early in one's career, and they last a lifetime, and that's really important, I think, on many, many levels. But I mean, what a relief it is to be able to call Gabby up or Missy up and say, well, what did you mean here? I'm trying to call Beethoven all the time, and he just, well, I guess he couldn't hear anyway, but it's just it's such a it's really a joy to be able to have that direct narrative from the creator. And of course, I think for composers, it's great to be able to hear from a conductor. Oh, what about this? Have you ever thought about that? And some composers are open to this and some are not. And I would say that, it's just like people in your life. You keep the ones that are open and work less frequently with the ones that are, close. At least I do. Because I think this idea of workshopping something together and building and being part of the creative process, Gabby, is a great idea. I think the more we can do that, the more we will all benefit from it.
Yeah. I think it is very important for the musicians to ask questions to the composer.
Mm-hmm. Very much so, and having that relationship with them, not expanding that relationship, not to the podium and the composer, but also to the orchestra or to the singers, if you're doing an opera, of having that. Yes, for sure. In some ways, we come through this conversation, I feel the word collaboration, collaborative work as being very coming through a lot, you know, collaborating with your communities, developing that, collaborating between composers. How crucial and at what point is collaboration between a composer and a conductor really key? Because, you know, some, as you say, you were saying that Gabriela, you were saying that you do not go at the beginning to rehearsals, you let them sort of get through it and then you come. Have you had before that conversations with the composer, with the conductor? You know, what kind of collaborative do you have even before the scene of restarting rehearsals?
Well, if you have a relationship with the conductor, that can start years earlier.
Yeah.
And I treasure those and I love those. I can, you know, text a question and say, you know, do you really think the Strauss should be taken at this tempo? I just heard it live and I felt like I couldn't hear such and such and such. And then the conductor can x-ray in and diagnose what you are hearing. And then we take that into the studio and it bleeds its way into 5 of our pieces. So there's a thing about sharing wisdom and hard-won experience with one another so that we can each do our jobs better. So I think this discussion is a river that constantly runs. And relationships can ebb and flow. Like you could be working a lot with somebody for a while, and then for a few years or 10 years, 20 years, you are working with other people, and then you come back, and it's like no time has passed. You're just richer for all the new pieces that you have brought to life, whether it's a conductor or a composer. So I'm always conversing when I can with my colleagues that have so much knowledge that will just help me do my job better. And then to see it as responsibility when they come to me and they want to know something or have my perspective, sometimes not just on my own music, but on other recently born pieces. So why would a composer write this way? You know, why can't it be this way? And I'll say, well, I think it's because they want to feel the afterbeat here. They don't want you to always be on the beat. And so if you can conduct a certain way where we're always kind of moving towards the afterbeat, I think that's what they're after. Why don't you go talk to them? So we can open doors in that way. I think conversation is just ongoing rather than having a beginning, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. So when you talk about conversation, maybe we can bridge the subject to communication. You know, communication, the art of communicating is so important. How you communicate on the podium or as with artists or with composers is crucial to success. What would you, perhaps I can ask the conductors to comment on. What would you say what advice would you give to younger conductors in the regard of what is at the heart of great communication on the podium? Maybe.
Yes.
Well, yes.
I think a permanent or guest conductor must first and foremost be a great musician with a taste for sharing with the orchestra musicians. They must enjoy and be comfortable communicating with the musician, have a deep knowledge of the works, and be very simple in order to be understood always. And at the same time, they must be a musician colleague who inspires them and lives with them intense moments of grace and passion. Alors, I could say to you, to young conductor, do not dominate your musicians, but don't let yourself be dominated. It is it is an équilibre. And perhaps always keep your ideal of human relation present. Something very incredible. Stay detached from money, power, and fame. It's very important because money, power, and fame are a disaster for the human values.
Very beautiful advices. Marin.
We have to struggle against ourselves.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Marin, what would you say to communication on the podium? And
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's complicated. I agree 100% with Claire, of course. I think as long as you come to the podium with 100% commitment to the music and 100% preparation and all of those things, I think musicians are actually quite forgiving. It might be strange to say that, but I think as long as your intention is really authentic and passionate and committed, that's the most important thing. But you know, I think there are a lot of gradations of communication, and it's a challenge. I think maybe it's just my personal feeling. I think for a long time early in my career, I was hoping to be liked. And I realized that really, first of all, that's just misdirected. It's not even on the priority list anymore. I just gave up. But I think it's that it's much more important to be respected than liked, and spend your energy intelligently, you know. That for me was not an intelligent way of channeling my energy, and it's an impossible reach as well. And I think always remember that you're dealing with 80, 100 people who have very complex egos as you do, and don't take on any of those issues. You know, those are their issues. So try to just I don't know, approach every rehearsal with an openness and open face, um, and try to, as I say to all the talkie conductors, you know, our goal is to be happy and helpful. And it sounds very simplistic, but I think it works. But of course, Claire is right. You know, you have to be the consummate musician and constantly pushing yourself to be better at what you do and more knowledgeable and all of those things.
A friend of mine said, "Our ego dies half an hour after us."
That's a very good. I will remember that one. That's a very good.
I think maybe some people it's a little bit longer though.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe some never die. That's a very good point. You know, when we hear that, there is a lot to do with gaining confidence too, of letting you know, when we go back to the idea of letting yourself think that failure is actually success, and that way, the minute that you are more confident, you can feel that you can. If you respect yourself, then you get respected. So there's that whole cycle of that. That's so important. I'm going to move to a very different subject with the composers for a second. In an era of, first of all, do you feel that there are more opportunities for women composers right now? And how important is it for your work to be recorded in a world where, you know, we're not no more really doing that many CDs, and that how can you make your work be known so that you get performed? Maybe I can start with whoever wants to start.
I can start.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's so you start, sorry, the first half was, are there more opportunities for women?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you know, it's so funny. It's like when that question, I'm really glad you asked that, but when that question comes up in interviews and people just say, "Oh, aren't things better for women now?" I tried to like, I'm just like, I can't answer that anymore. Because yes, like, you know, 60, 70 years ago, there was no representation and we've slowly clawed and now there's like some representation. I think the latest statistics are that, you know, 7% of works performed by major orchestras in this country are written by women. And it actually went down last year. So like, what, you know, so that's still a very low number. So I try to keep people focused on that. Or people will say like, oh, you know, have success and some of your female colleagues have success. So we've solved, you know, the problem of sexism in music. And it's like, you can't just look at one person's success and draw conclusions about it. So I would just say those things. I think there are definitely more, there's more awareness around lack of gender parity in the field. And again, with Me Too, and I too saw that as a big turning point where finally there was a language and there was people were listening to what women had to say about lack of representation and the way that they were being treated. So yes, like there are definitely more opportunities. There's definitely more representation, but I think we have a long way to go. And I'm interested in really looking at the many places in the system where it falls apart for women. You know, so with Luna Lab, we're doing a lot of research at like, where do the numbers drop off for female composers? Is it when they're in high school? Are they not applying to college? Are they applying to college as composers and not getting in? Are they not getting opportunities afterwards? So it's like, and usually it's multiple spots. Anyway, so that's my sort of broad mishmash answer for that one. And sorry, the second one, recordings, yeah. I think it's very, very important. I mean, I just had an opera premiere in Philadelphia, which was the US premiere. It had a world premiere in Oslo a couple years ago, but has not yet been recorded. We're recording it this spring, but and I just, you know, it's like really hard to sell people on an idea. And this was an opera based on an original story. It was not a film adaptation. Like people really had nothing to go on. And it really hit home for me how important recordings are. Having a recording opens you up to so many different opportunities. It opens you up to licensing possibilities for film and TV. It opens you up to things like being eligible for Grammys. I mean, and just like one of those things can like be the big break for a composer. And I think that you know, it's really hard in America to record orchestral works. I had not had a single orchestral work of mine recorded until I made my own album in 2021 with an orchestra, 2 orchestras in Norway. So still have not yet had any recording with an American orchestra. And so it's like, it's very, very hard. And I think it's a really, and I don't know how to solve the problem exactly, but I want to always bring awareness to the importance of recordings for a composer's career.
It's wonderful that you share that, because as conductors, that's something that needs to be on our radar, of finding ways to help that and do that as a point. Gabriela, first question.
I agree with Missy on everything, and I just get uncomfortable when I'm asked this question most of the time. I'm not uncomfortable when I'm asked this question. Say I'm in an environment of women composers and they're aspiring women composers, and they're feeling kind of down, and I'll say, yes, things are better. You got it, and you're important. The work that you do is very important. The world is starting to see it. But when I'm in a different environment and somebody wants to relax, they want to say, we're doing good, right? And they have a little bit of a check the box mentality, and I will not answer the question. I will, say, well, we're not, have you played such and such composer? Have you done these composers from this era? Even they don't even have to be living composers. I mean, we have a lot of work to unearth the women that came before us who were absolutely amazing and couldn't get recordings. That's one of the reasons why recordings are important. I mean, this dovetails into the second question, is that there are a lot of premieres and a lot of pieces that go nowhere. If you really want to consolidate something into the consciousness of the culture and it becomes something that's a testimonial about the culture's values, recording is a really important way of doing that. And it's a great way of opening up our field beyond the hedges of classical music to people that don't know that we exist. There are a lot of people that don't know that classical music is a living art form. And we're in it, and people need to see something on YouTube. They need to see something on whatever, whatever the platform may be. I will say that when San Francisco Opera did my opera and it was live streamed, all this interest went up on not just my opera music, on everything. My pages were getting more hits, like by a lot, from around the world. And then I was seeing composers like Gabriela Lena Frank. So it's not a self-serving enterprise necessarily. It's something that will rain benefits on other women, other Latino composers. So recording needs to happen, and I go back and forth on whether it needs to be a CD release or whatever the medium is, or if it's another format of preservation works, like a YouTube video. This begs the question of how we talk to unions and live stream, and the pandemic really threw a lot, into some chaos when publishers and agents were then saying, okay, how do we, license this? So we're kind of in flux, but still the need to disseminate and reach is unaltered. Recording is very important.
Yeah, I was going to ask the question, how important is it that it's a professional recording that is done in the studio, and that really is to be as a release, or getting, a live stream or a recording of a performance? Does that matter? Is it really the idea of being able to share it with others, or also having that, like we had for past composers, where you have those recordings?
Personally, I love live recordings. I want to feel the blood of it, and I have had orchestra pieces recorded, and the ones that I liked the best were the ones where they took live performances, and then they did their splicing, and they're splicing things that I can't even hear. They're like, which one do you want? You want take one or take two? And I said, the trumpet player sounds amazing in both. I'm not gonna, make up some opinion, but there's a satisfaction that the players need to have in their performance, so they are part of that process, and the conductor as well. So the studio recording is fine, but I think it's great to tutor the ears of the unseasoned in what a live performance can give them and how exciting that can be too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just jump in really quickly. I agree. And just on the note of recordings, I think that any recording is better than none. So if it's just a YouTube video, if it's a live recording that you can then put on Spotify or something with everyone's permission, that's better than nothing. And also just to say that I think this is where conductors and performers often have more power than composers when it comes to organizing recordings and pitching album ideas. So like I'm working with Dahlia, she was, offered a platform to make an album, and she said, oh, we'll put one of Missy's pieces on it. A recording I did with the Iceland Symphony, it came together through the conductor. So no one has ever asked me like, oh, we're going to make a record of your music and what do you want on it? Like that happens, but very rarely. So I think that for emerging composers, this is where conductor partnerships are really important, and performers as well.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up, because I think it's something for young conductors to think about as they develop relationship with composers, to also create that medium so that the recording is there for their work too. They've conducted it, and for the composer to be. So we have 1 minute left, but so I thought I would just end by asking both of our conductors if what advice do you want to give to our conductors as they come to in January to work with the Dallas Opera, rehearse some works that are from various periods, excerpts, and what would you say would benefit the most as they come to that, to experience that, as they prepare to come to that? I know, Marin, you know the Institute a little bit more than Claire, but just in that idea, that would be great to end with that.
I guess I would say that I just try to be like a sponge and absorb everything, and take everything in as and plus more, and you know, there's wonderful video from your rehearsals, from your workshops. Watch every second of it. You know what I mean? Just really, I think maximize this incredible opportunity. That's my advice.
Thank you. What about you, Claire?
To have a lot of finesse, experience, humility, a sense of brotherhood and otherness, and to listen a lot to the others, and to decide at the best moment.
Wonderful advice. Thank you both. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us. I've so appreciated hearing your thoughts on so many various projects, various ideas, and I know that our conductors will cherish that conversation. So thank you for taking the time off your very busy schedule to do this, and we hope that soon, at one point, those conductors will get to meet you in person. That would be wonderful. Thank you again for your time.
I enjoy to
Thank
meet
you.
Thank you.
Much.